They could have had the whole thing wrapped up by 2021, and they wouldn't be facing the uncomfortable prospect of having to keep using actors like Millie Bobby Brown, who now look like middle-aged cocktail waitresses from Vegas.
I live stream 4 days a week, which is listed in the description down below for my Twitch and my other YouTube channel. I also post more content on Patreon.
Oh. Allison's exciting. She likes art. Look at her legs, Steve.
Today I'm going to be reacting to More Critical Drinker. TV kinda sucks now.
So I was perusing the internet the other day in search of stuff to laugh at, when naturally I happened upon an update for Season 3 of Rings of Power, which is apparently shooting over here in the UK and is likely to last until the end of the year. And because shows like this need about another decade of post-production, that means we're unlikely to see a third season until at least 2027. 3 entire years since the previous season.
Oh no! What happened?
Damn man, wars have been fought and won in that time. And it's not alone in this either. The final season of Stranger Things comes out in November, 3 years since the last episode aired. Last of Us Season 2 came out 2 full years after the previous season, and for the handful of people excited for Season 3, well, you're gonna have to wait until 2027 for that, boyo.
Oh shucks.
And all of this stuff got me to thinking, man, TV kinda sucks now.
Fuck.
Can really see the point actually immediately, something that I didn't really notice myself because I don't really keep up with these shows. But if a lot of these are already remakes or renditions of video games or movies that have already been made, stories that are kind of already built to the end, universes that have already been imagined, and rules that can kind of already be followed, like guidelines that existed previously is the point, then it's interesting to think about how shows in the past used to kind of be accepted or come out once a year. It was a season. Second season comes out next season. The very next season. The very next year that this show released in fall, the very next fall, it will come out. However, it seems like things take way longer in production. Things cost so much more money. That things take 2 years now. Even sometimes 2.5, maybe 3. Maybe even only a year, but you only get half a season. You get half a season? Why is that becoming a popular accepted thing where, oh, here's the next season, but only half of it?
Maybe not so much in the content department, although I could definitely make an argument about that. But the whole shooting structure and business model is completely ass backwards now. Gone are the days when you'd get a new season of your favourite show every year, so you could always feel excited and invested in it. And I mean an actual season of 20 or even 24 episodes, not the 8-episode mini-series, or 5 in some cases, that are laughably pretending to be TV seasons nowadays. Gone are the days of episodic storytelling, where each new week brought a new adventure or some interesting new self-contained storyline, where writers were encouraged to experiment and take chances and try wildly creative new ideas. Now everything has got to be serialized, everything has to be in service of one big overarching storyline, and at a certain point, well, it gets pretty boring, man. And not just that, it gets exhausting. Like, you can't afford to miss a single episode or you'll have no idea what's going on. It becomes like homework, something that you constantly have to stay updated on. And how can I put this? It's just not very entertaining anymore. But more than that, it creates a lot of problems that I don't think studios fully appreciate. So why not talk about them right here and now?
Maybe the fact that it lasted 20 episodes means that you don't have to wait as long for the next season because it was only 5 episodes to hold you over for an entire year of waiting. So if you're only going to have 5, 6, maybe at most 8 episodes and wait more than a year and a half to make another season, well then you just kind of lose a bit of the excitement for it. People kind of forget. It's almost as if you have to rewatch the first 5 episodes by the time the next 6 come out because it's been a year and a half. And, you know, if you forgot the last episode, a lot happened in that one episode because, well, the entire story is being carried over only 5 parts. So you missed one part, you missed several characters dying. And look, limited series, in my personal opinion, seem to have actually been some of the most successful, entertaining pieces of content or media as of recently. What counts as recent? The last 10 years? Queen's Gambit. But But with my memory, the success of that also helps because you don't have to wait so long for everything to come out. It's a limited series. So for the most part, whenever you get into it, it's all out. So sure, fine, that's a completely different topic because it's a limited series. You're not waiting for something season to season. But they've been really successful.
The first big problem is a loss of momentum. A full 22 episode season of TV with a weekly release schedule would last almost half the year, meaning that there might only be a 6-month gap between the end of one season and the start of the next. This was really important because it meant that the show was never really out of public consciousness. Just as the conversation about the last season was dying down, the hype train for the next season would start to build up again. It was good because it kept the fan base engaged and enthused, and it meant that people always had a good sense of where the show was at and what was happening. Now imagine the difference when you have to wait 2 or even 3 years between seasons. You don't need me to tell you that a whole lot of stuff can happen in that time, especially now because, let's be honest, we live in a world of constant distractions. There's a million other shows, movies, games, books, news reports about the impending collapse of society, and highly sexy but slightly intoxicated YouTubers from Scotland, all vying for our very limited time and attention. Fan bases, fickle and terminally online as they are, can just as easily drift away to other shows and IPs during that 3-year gap, or just lose interest entirely because they've forgotten what your show is even about. And even if they do somehow stick around until your next season, you then have to waste precious time reminding them about everything that's happened up until now, because it's been so long since the last season happened that half your audience has forgotten what's even going on now.
Game of Thrones actually comes to mind. Didn't watch it personally in school, but kind of remember whenever people were talking about Game of Thrones and maybe even another show called Once Upon a Time, it seemed as if the teachers and students had something to talk about every year. I could be wrong. Easily correct me. I know Game of Thrones required a lot of money and a lot of production, and I think at one point they were trying to wait on the books to come out, but then they wouldn't come out, so then they actually had to have their own writing, which caused like a bit of a slow part. Plus, I'm sure there was a writer's strike. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, apologies. But even if they did take a while, they are slightly an exception because they were already so good that by the time there was a writer's strike, or by the time they did kind of have to do their own writing and veer away from the books because the books stopped coming out, I think that people kind of just accepted it because it was already season 4, season 5. You're kind of already involved in the show. It's like, okay, we're here for it. And fine, it was based off of books. That's content that already existed. But we're talking about something that was based off of books that was already a show or movies that's now being redone, and it's only been 15, at most 20 years.
Take House of the Dragon, for example. That was a pretty good show, right? Yeah, arguably it's a bit slow and ponderous at times, and it could probably use a few less miserable people standing around in badly lit castles looking at maps, but overall it's well written, well acted and well produced, and a nice little comeback after the disaster of Game of Thrones. The problem is that 2-year gap between seasons absolutely killed its momentum, which is why the audience declined more than 20% from seasons 1 to 2.
You serious?
And with season 3 at least another year away, what do you think that's going to do for the show's ratings? Another problem that's beginning to rear its ugly head, especially with younger actors, is aging. Kids grow up fast, especially if you happen to cast them when they're like 11 or 12 years old. I mean, take Stranger Things for example, and compare the actors from season 1 to what they look like now. They're still supposed to be playing this plucky band of young teenagers, but they all look about 30 years old now, and at a certain point it just gets weirds. Then you also realise it's been almost a decade since the show premiered, and in that time they've made a grand total of 5 seasons, one of which isn't even out yet. Now imagine if they'd been able to release a season every year. They could have had the whole thing wrapped up by 2021, and they wouldn't be facing the uncomfortable prospect of having to keep using actors like Millie Bobby Brown, who now look like middle-aged cocktail waitresses from Vegas.
Oh, that's not nice. I would be way too sensitive. Like, I don't need to see people in like whole news articles. You're telling me it's a whole article of Millie Bobby Brown and why she looks older than she actually is. Like, but I do get the point. It's a valid thing to point out. Hey, we're supposed to believe that this is taking place every summer. You guys are taking 2 years to make every summer episodes. So, in the span of saying it's been 5 years, these kids have literally aged 10. That is so obviously distracting. Like, you're talking about a 10-year-old to a 20-year-old. We can tell the difference. This 20-year-old, especially being in like media, wearing makeup, being dressed a certain way, maybe being around adults, they're also maybe acting a little bit older than they actually are. So on top of that, because of not having a super normal childhood, these 20-year-olds might act and dress and look like they're actually 25 and they're supposed to be playing 15-year-olds. It's getting a bit hard. I mean, Harry Potter scraped by with doing it, but honestly, I thought I remember Harry Potter pretty consistently coming out. Sure, they missed it a little bit, but I thought it was believable. And 8 movies, that's pretty good. And how long?
Although I have to admit, it does kind of make me laugh when shows run into the exact opposite problem sometimes, like The Last of Us, who cast a child-sized Bella Ramsey to play a young Ellie, probably assuming she'd grow up and age noticeably between seasons to account for the 5-year time jump, only to discover that she still looked like a 10-year-old when it was time to start shooting again. Boy, did you guys gamble and lose on that one. The other thing I really miss about TV today is episodic storytelling. Not knowing what kind of wacky, creative, thought-provoking, or downright weird adventure my favourite characters would get caught up in this week. It brought in a much-needed sense of variety and unpredictability to TV shows, where you felt like almost anything could happen, instead of just grinding forward with the same storyline you've been following for years. It also gave the writers a chance to branch out sometimes, take a few creative risks and try stuff that was just a little bit different. Yeah, the gamble didn't always pay off, usually when they allowed one of the lead actors to write and direct an episode, something they were absolutely not qualified to do, and you could definitely tell when the writers had run out of ideas and just slapped together a bunch of flashbacks instead, but that was part of the charm of the whole thing. Sometimes it didn't work out, but most of the time it did, and if not, well, you had about 22 other episodes to choose from that season. And yeah, I know Alex Kurtzman's idiotic idea of modern Star Trek is still trying to do episodic storytelling, but let's be honest, no one cares about that because nobody watches that garbage now. Obviously, I'm not saying
I've only seen like 3 episodes of old school Star Trek. But yes, it does seem like a show, even from a distance, that was ahead of its time. And wow, how do you come up with that many seasons and that so many different episodes with so many different themes and ideas and issues? Like, you have all of these different character dynamics and problems that they would have to solve and fix in each episode, and each episode was very uniquely different, and they come out all the time. It was very consistent, but all very unique. Fine, of course you're gonna have like 3, maybe 4. It's like, that was slapped together. Someone else wrote that. That was lame. But yeah, he's right. Out of 20 episodes, 18 of them being good, that's a really good season. And then you don't have to wait even that long before the next season. It's exciting. This works a bit differently. I mean, these episodes are probably shorter, I would imagine. Maybe I'm wrong. Whereas a lot of the episodes that we're comparing it to, Game of Thrones, The Last of Us, these are hour-long episodes.
Obviously, I'm not saying that every show's got to be like that, and I totally get that certain settings or IPs don't lend themselves to episodic storytelling, but I feel like we've swung so far towards serialized storytelling that nobody even does it anymore. Everything now has to be about pushing one grand narrative forward, one painful step at a time, with multi-year gaps in between. The last thing I'm getting pretty sick of is studios turning movie scripts into TV series without bothering to ask if there's even enough material for it. Marvel and Star Wars are especially guilty of this shit, where you can tell they had the story outlined for a 2-hour theatrical movie and instead stretched it out into a 6-episode miniseries instead, without really knowing how they were going to fill in all that extra time. What you end up with is either painful time-killing filler episodes where nobody accomplishes much of anything, or characters who get caught up in tedious busy work just to give them something to do. It's so lazy and unnecessary, and it results in a flabby, inefficient show that nobody's excited about.
Personally, I want to make sure that I never sound like I'm just being really ranty and pessimistic. I don't necessarily feel day to day, gosh, I really wish I could watch TV, but everything stinks. But it is interesting whenever you do have these conversations because you think about it, and then you kind of notice it. And it's like, oh yeah, kind of can recall a lot of things that I do know that I liked, but it's just been such a long time and has increased in the amount of time as years go on that something that I really enjoy comes out. It used to be a lot, and then it was every few years, and then it was every several years. And now, when was the last time that something came out that's recent that you really, really liked and got into? And if you answer recently, that's awesome. I'm sure there's literally so many people who can say that. Personally, I can say a few things, but I realize that recent to me is still kind of 2020, 2021, and that's chunks of years ago.
I guess what I'm saying with this long rambling rant is that more and more now I find myself checking out of TV shows these days. I just don't have the time, the emotional investment, or the sheer mental energy to get through 10-hour serialized narratives like that anymore. Season 2 of Peacemaker might turn out to be the single greatest thing ever to grace our TV screens, but I'll probably never know about it because I just can't be arsed watching it now. House of the Dragon Season 3 will probably be another season of solid, well-crafted, but slightly stodgy fantasy TV, but by the time it eventually comes out, I honestly don't know if I give enough of a shit to watch it. The final season of Stranger Things could see the world's most shot-out group of teenagers finally bring their decade-long story to a close, but after so long, do I even care how it all ends? I don't know, man, and I suspect a lot of other people are starting to feel the same way. One thing's for sure though, the current model of TV just isn't working anymore. Something's got to change, and if I'm right, it has to change sooner rather than later. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Again, spend most of my time not watching TV, so it's not really like a big deal or something super pessimistic in my opinion, because if I really want to watch something that I enjoy, I have no problem rewatching something that I've enjoyed. I will rewatch Avatar Last Airbender. I don't even care. At this point, if you don't remake it and you can't make a live action that's good, I don't even care. Just stop touching it. I will rewatch the animated series over and over again and be very happy. Harry Potter was one I wanted to touch base on. He specifically said and called out Star Wars, I believe, and Marvel's for taking one character that didn't really have a huge solid background and giving them an entire series. Yeah, I could see them doing that. I was really interested in watching a few of them, one of them being Loki. Really liked the character. I've even heard the show's good, but there's something about it that just made me hesitant because I'm not exactly sure how much content they have for each character that they're trying to just milk having their own series. There's something that was really cool about the aspect because you think about all the different dynamics and how much time and thought that they're putting in each character, and I love the different worlds and different perspectives that they're building. It's not just one world and you catch glimpses of different characters and what they think for moments. You actually get to then see them and their whole entire perspective and their whole entire universe, and then you can kind of even watch the movies with their perspective in mind. Like, oh, I really got to know that individual character really well now. I love the idea of that personally, but it doesn't really seem like they're doing it for the joy of story writing or storytelling or character development. Kind of just seems like, well, we know that we want it to end this way in 9 episodes, and we know we have to start with this. What kind of shenanigans can they get into? And it's like, there's a balance. Nothing necessarily wrong with that, but if that's all that you're doing, it just kind of feels like, again, a money grab. Hopefully that made sense. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you check out Critical Drinker's channel because that's actually who makes the original video. So make sure you check out his channel. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing to mine. Leave your comments down below. Healthy and nice debate type comments are welcomed. Nicely. Nice. Constructive. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.